So, here. From Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg, we learn in devarim, which is Deuteronomy 34:10. And there was no other prophet who arose in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Numbers 12:18. With him I speak mouth to mouth in a vision and not in riddles, and he beholds the image of the Lord. Numbers is bamidbar. Again, continues the quote. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the alter rebbe, the Grand Master, founder of Chabad Chassidus, says not only that Hashem, that Moshe saw Hashem, but number two, he also saw what Hashem sees, how Hashem would see the image that is interpreted and viewed. Chushim are the senses. Chushim is also the son of Dan, the tribe that returned everyone to their way when they got lost. Even though Chushim had no sense of, he was deaf. He had no hearing, no voice either. Apparently, when they got lost, the tribe of Dan would return them to their truth. A simple and earnest tribe they have the same letters as Mashiach, Chushim and Mashiach. So who will simply earnestly relate to everyone and teach the truth of the Torah to each one on their level and return everyone to their alignment. Plus, it says Mashiach will have a special chush or a sense, and plus at Mashiach time, everyone will return to their tribe. Nir Menussi says that the sages state that God has outer chambers and inner chambers. In God's outer chambers, he demonstrates his joy, as described in the verse, might and joy are in his place. 1 Chronicles 16:27, which is divrei hayamim. In his inner chambers, however, we find that in secrecy my soul weeps. That's yirmiyahu, Jeremiah 13:17. He cries in secret over the exile and the torment of the Jewish people. 3 types of sinning. There's really many more terms in Hebrew from the Torah to define sin, but there are 3 main ones. Chet, to miss the mark, is a deliberate violation of social and ritual laws. 2, avon, iniquity, in acting unjustly, lawlessly, or perversely. And pesha, transgress, is rebelling against God by violating God's commandments. The rabbinical term for sin, sorry, what someone said. The rabbinical term for sin is generally avera. Transgression encompasses all 3 meanings. And this is from Introduction to Judaism, a sourcebook. In the Talmud, Niddah 22b to 24a, sages say that one derives halacha of a matter with regard to which formation is stated by means of a verbal analogy from another matter with regard to which formation is stated, but one doesn't derive halacha in the matter from which creation is stated from a matter with regard to which creation is stated from a matter with regard to which formation is stated. So how much of the lower part of a person's body, when removed from a living person, would cause him to die? Because one cannot survive from such a wound. Rabbi Zakkai says until the knee. Rabbi Yonah says until his orifices. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yossi ben Yoshua until the navel's location. Chassa says that only part of a human face is required as fulfilling the need for having a human face. Rava says, Chassa says it's sufficient if it has a human appearance on one side, with a forehead, 1 eyebrow, 1 eye, 1 cheek, and chin is enough. And that the woman is not impure for discharging this fetus unless the facial features all as one have the human form. In response to Rabbi Yirmiyahu Bar Abba, who says, Rabbi Yochanan says a woman's impure only if the discharged entity has entire human face with forehead, eyebrows, cheeks, eyes, chin. The rabbis had said, it is even one of the facial features that is sufficient to render the woman impure, not counting the ear according to any of them. Rabbi Meir said that the woman is impure if any part of the face is impure and doesn't require a significant part. Rabbi Meir doesn't require that a significant part looks human, versus the rabbis who require a recognizable human face, like for example half of the face or whatever. The sages taught in a baraita that a woman who discharges a fetus that has a sealed body, its mother is not impure with the impurity of childbirth. In other words, the child couldn't have lived, I guess, or it's something that's not human. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what that means. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi says a sealed baby is one lacking a limb that, when removed from a living person, will cause him to die. Bechorot 46a, is that Barachot or Bechorot? Okay, Mishnah says a fetus of the form of an animal cannot survive, and if a woman discharged previously a fetus with an appearance similar to that of an undomesticated or domesticated animal or a bird before giving birth to any children, and therein has a son, he is a firstborn regarding the halachic. Oh, it's Bechorim then, yeah. he's a firstborn regarding halachic inheritance, but does not require redemption because the fetus is considered a full-fledged offspring in that regard. So it wasn't the thing that broke the womb, but he is still the firstborn, according to Rabbi Meir. Rava said that it's possible that the animal shaped like an animal could survive, but it's different with regard to the firstborn inheritance because the firstborn status only applies to a son whose death a father would mourn. A fetus that takes the form of a person is considered to open the womb. In the case of a woman who discharged a fetus in pieces, or like a sandalfish, or from whom an afterbirth or a gestational sac in which tissue developed emerged, the son that follows them is considered a firstborn with regard to inheritance, but not in regard to redemption from a priest. If a woman who discharges a snake form item, the Gemara argues that she should not be impure since it has a round pupil like a woman, like a human. Additionally, it also asks if a mother who discharges an item with form of a sea monster should be, impure, like the impurity of childbirth, since the concept of formation is stated with regard to its creation, just as it's stated with regard to the creation of man. Genesis, Bereshit 1:21, and God created the gray sea monsters. But the Gemara says that the man and sea monster, as a verbal analogy, is rejected because man can become impure while he's alive. An animal can become impure only after it dies, and a sea monster cannot become impure at all. The first known comprehensive prayer book was composed by Rabbi Gaon Amram in the 9th century. Rav Amram, the leading Babylonian authority, wrote a responsum listing all of the prayers demanded of the Jew and sent it as guidance to the Jewish community in Spain. The responsum became known as Seder Rav Amram, and in the 10th century, Rav Saadia Gaon wrote the second known prayer book. And this is I learned that from the Introduction to Judaism, a sourcebook. Also, that the Zohar Book of Splendor appears at the end of the 13th century, publicized by a Spanish rabbi Kabbalist named Moses de Leon, Moshe ben Shem Tov, from 1240 to 1305, who said he took traditions going back to Rashbi and committed them to writing, the Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who we attribute the Zohar to. And there was a gratitude list I wrote of things that I hadn't normally thought about being so amazing, but I wanted to share them. So I will. Basically, I wrote this within the last year, but definitely closer to a year than now. Maybe so it's over a half a year, maybe 3/4 of a year, a little over half a year. Yeah, something close to a year or a little less than a year, whatever it is. So learning about personality, persona, role, character, and its purpose or function for survival, belonging, usefulness, relevance, and how it can be hard to change if we don't yet know how to wear or expose a different self. Based on that, I had a talk with Gabriella Broome. And actually, I just saw her yesterday. I told her that we could be anyone now. All right. Also about sympathy, I had a conversation with a woman named Devorah Blank. Sympathy is a little bit aloof versus empathy, which is attached through emotion. And then there's also compassion, which is brave, a witness, presence, understanding, remembers what it's like without having to feel it now, and it doesn't have to lose its anchor footing that all is impermanent and temporary. Showing up without shortcuts, quick fixes, instant gratifications and distractions, urgency, term answers. I can clear, blockages for the sake of giving others the way out too. It's healing and can be draining and exhausting as it's new skills and exercise and requires a lot of energy based on a talk I had with Adina Leitner, who I'm going to call her shortly. We're going to have a conversation. The aura force field protection magnetic center is a core space, a safety access point. So to radiate so that there's no weak place for incoming impenetrable boundaries that are activated by breath. Neshima, neshama, breath, and ruach, spirit and air and wind and breath. Done so for the front, the back, the right, the left, the up, the down, and from the middle, and then between the top and bottom, and then between the right and left, and then between the front and back. And I did this practice on this talk with somebody named ortal, akshoti, and akshoti. And then based on a meditation and contemplation, I realized about inside-outside fitness, dynamic, adaptive for future and past, deleting the junk DNA, ideas and thoughts and memories in order to fulfill God's desire to give ample bounty, health, wholeness, fulfillment, all natural, totally caught up into joy and curiosity and bliss with angelic approvals and support, because they also worship Hashem. And we'll stop here. I'm going to do another video because this is for yesterday, Sunday, which I didn't record one. Yeah. All right. Okay. Bye.